Ladies and gentlemen, imagine waking up every day with one mission: to become the strongest, smartest, and most unstoppable version of yourself. While the world distracts you with noise, opinions, and comparison, there is a quiet power inside you waiting to be unleashed. What if I told you that the moment you focus solely on you, everything else, success, clarity, confidence, will start falling into place? Today, I'm going to show you how to cut through the chaos, trust your process, and commit to the one person who will never quit on you, yourself. Focus on you until you win. Not because the world told you to, not because someone doubted you, but because there is something inside you that refuses to stay small. Most people spend their lives distracted by opinions that don't matter, distracted by comparisons that were never fair, distracted by noise that feels urgent but changes nothing. And while they are busy watching others, waiting for permission, waiting for validation, waiting for the perfect moment, their own potential sits quietly unused. Focusing on you is not selfish, it is responsible, because you cannot give your best to the world if you are constantly borrowing your sense of worth from it. When you focus on you, you stop asking, "Do they believe in me?" and start asking, "Do I believe in what I'm building?" That shift changes everything. Progress rarely looks impressive at the beginning. It looks lonely, it looks repetitive, it looks like doing the same small thing every day while no one is watching. And that's where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they didn't get applause fast enough. But winning has never belonged to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the one who stayed when it got quiet. When you focus on you, you learn to measure success differently. You stop counting likes and start counting lessons. You stop chasing motivation and start building discipline. Motivation comes and goes, discipline stays. Discipline shows up on days when you feel confident and on days when you feel completely lost, and over time, discipline compounds into trust. Trust in yourself, trust that even when the results are slow, the direction is right. There will be moments when focusing on you feels uncomfortable. Growth always is. It will require you to sit with your weaknesses instead of hiding them. It will require you to admit that some habits are holding you back, even if they feel familiar. Familiar doesn't mean effective. Comfort doesn't mean progress. The moment you choose growth, discomfort becomes part of the process. You don't need to announce your plans. You don't need to explain your vision to people who aren't committed to helping you build it. Focus is quiet. Focus is intentional. Focus is waking up and choosing the long road when the shortcut looks tempting but empty. Every time you say no to a distraction, you say yes to yourself. Winning is not a single moment. It's not one big achievement that suddenly makes everything easy. Winning is becoming the kind of person who can handle success when it arrives. That's why the work before the reward matters so much. If you skip the work, the reward won't last. If you rush the process, the foundation cracks under pressure. When you focus on you, you stop reacting to everything around you. You respond with purpose. You learn when to push and when to pause. You understand that rest is not quitting, and silence is not weakness. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to step back, recalibrate, and continue with clarity. People may misunderstand your focus. They may call it distance. They may call it arrogance. Let them. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be aligned with what matters, and alignment creates consistency. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates results. Every day you have a choice. You can scatter your energy trying to keep up with others, or you can invest it in becoming better than you were yesterday. One path feels busy, the other feels meaningful. One path gives you excuses, the other gives you growth. Focus on you when it's boring. Focus on you when it's hard. Focus on you when the results are invisible and the doubt is loud. Because the moment you start trusting the process more than the opinions, something shifts. You begin to move with intention. You begin to act with confidence that doesn't need approval. You begin to win long before anyone else notices, long before anyone else understands, long before anyone else believes, because the real victory starts the moment you stop looking outward for permission, and commit fully to the work that is shaping you into someone stronger than you were yesterday. And that commitment changes how you see time. You stop rushing, you stop panicking when results don't show up immediately. You understand that anything meaningful takes longer than expected, and that patience is not passive. Patience is active trust. It's choosing to show up again today because you showed up yesterday, even when nothing dramatic happened in between. Focusing on you also means learning to separate urgency from importance. The world is full of urgent demands. Messages, notifications, opinions, trends that insist you react now. But the important work rarely screams for attention. It whispers, it waits, it asks for consistency, not intensity. When you focus on you, you learn to protect your attention as if it were your most valuable resource, because it is. What you give your attention to becomes your future. There will be days when self-doubt feels logical, when evidence seems to support the idea that you're behind, that others are ahead, that maybe you missed your chance. Those thoughts feel convincing because they are familiar, not because they are true. Focusing on you means questioning those stories instead of obeying them. It means asking, is this thought helping me move forward? If the answer is no, you let it pass without letting it decide your next step. You begin to realize that clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Waiting to feel ready keeps you stuck in preparation forever. Focusing on you means acting with imperfect information, learning as you go, adjusting without losing momentum. You don't need the full map, you need the next step taken with intention. As you stay focused, something subtle happens. Your standards rise not because you want to impress anyone, but because you respect yourself enough not to settle. You stop negotiating with habits that drain you. You stop tolerating environments that shrink you. This isn't about cutting people off dramatically. It's about choosing where your energy goes and where it doesn't. Energy is finite. Focus teaches you to spend it wisely. There will be moments when slowing down feels like falling behind. But focus teaches you that speed without direction leads nowhere. Direction without speed still leads somewhere meaningful. You learn that steady progress beats sporadic bursts of effort every time. Consistency builds identity. Over time, you stop trying to prove who you are and start operating from who you are becoming. When setbacks come, and they will, focusing on you changes how you interpret them. Failure stops being a verdict and starts being feedback. Not a sign to stop, but a signal to refine. You don't personalize every obstacle. You analyze it. You ask what it's teaching you. And then you move forward, slightly wiser than before. You begin to trust your own rhythm. You stop forcing timelines that don't fit your reality. Comparison loses its grip because you are no longer racing anyone. You are building something specific, something aligned, something that requires your pace, not someone else's. Focus creates independence of thought, and independence of thought creates resilience. As you grow, silence becomes a strength. You don't feel the need to explain every decision or justify every choice. You let your actions speak over time. This kind of confidence isn't loud. It's grounded. It comes from knowing that even if everything around you changes, your commitment remains. Focusing on you also sharpens your sense of purpose. You stop chasing goals just because they look impressive. You start asking whether they actually matter to you. Purpose isn't about intensity of desire. It's about clarity of direction. When you're clear on why you're doing something, endurance follows naturally. Some days, focus will feel like discipline. Other days, it will feel like faith. Faith that the work you're doing today is connected to a result you can't yet see. Faith that effort compounds, even when progress is invisible. Faith that staying aligned matters more than staying comfortable. And slowly, almost without noticing, you change, not in a dramatic, overnight way, but in a way that lasts. Your reactions soften, your decisions strengthen, your sense of identity becomes less dependent on outcomes and more rooted in effort. You don't need constant reassurance because you've built internal proof. Focus on you until winning becomes a byproduct, not the obsession. until improvement feels natural and showing up feels non-negotiable, until the habits you once struggled to maintain start to define you, until the noise fades, the direction sharpens, and the work itself becomes the reason you continue, day after day, choice after choice, grounded in the understanding that every small intentional action is shaping a future that didn't exist before you committed to building it, even when no one else sees the blueprint you're following. That's the nature of focus. It doesn't need witnesses to be real. It doesn't need applause to be valid. It only needs commitment, and commitment is a quiet decision you make repeatedly, often when no one is asking you to. There is a difference between being busy and being effective. Many people confuse motion with progress. They fill their days with activity, but they avoid the work that actually moves them forward because that work requires honesty. It requires looking at what isn't working and choosing to change it. When you focus on you, you stop hiding behind busyness and start prioritizing impact. You begin to understand that confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act despite it. Fear doesn't disappear when you're focused. It just stops being in charge. You notice it, you acknowledge it, and you keep moving. Over time, fear loses its authority because it's no longer making your decisions. Focusing on you also reshapes how you handle criticism. You no longer take every opinion as instruction. You listen, you filter, and you decide. Not all feedback deserves equal weight. Some of it is projection, some of it is noise, some of it is useful. Focus gives you the clarity to tell the difference without becoming defensive or detached. As the days stack up, you realize that self-trust isn't built through success alone. It's built through follow-through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, trust grows. Miss those promises repeatedly and doubt creeps in. Focus on you means protecting that trust like something fragile, because once it's strong, it supports everything else. There will be stretches where progress feels painfully slow, where effort outweighs evidence. This is where most people look for exits. They ask whether it's worth it, whether they chose the right path. Focusing on you doesn't mean you never question. It means you don't quit just because the answers aren't immediate. You keep going long enough for clarity to catch up. You also start to see that not every opportunity is meant for you. Focus narrows your field of vision in a productive way. You stop chasing every open door and start walking deliberately toward the one that aligns. Saying no becomes easier because you're no longer afraid of missing out. You're more concerned with staying aligned. Alignment brings calm, not because everything is easy, but because everything makes sense. Even the hard days have context. Even the setbacks feel connected to something larger. When you're focused, chaos loses its power to overwhelm you. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of drift. At some point, the external markers of success stop being the main motivator. You still care about results, but they no longer define you. What defines you is the person you're becoming through the process. The discipline, the patience, the resilience, these qualities don't disappear when circumstances change. They stay with you. You begin to notice how much energy you used to waste trying to control things you never could. Other people's opinions, their timelines, their reactions. Focus brings that energy back home. It teaches you where your control ends and where your responsibility begins. And that distinction is freeing. Focusing on you doesn't mean isolation. It means intentional connection. You become more selective about who you listen to and why. You value people who challenge you with honesty over those who comfort you with agreement. You don't need a crowd. You need clarity. There will be moments when progress demands sacrifice, time, comfort, familiar routines. Focus doesn't pretend those sacrifices are easy. It simply reminds you why they matter. Every meaningful gain costs something. The question isn't whether there will be a cost. It's whether the cost aligns with what you're trying to build. You start to understand that winning isn't about arrival. It's about trajectory, about knowing you're moving in the right direction, even if you're not there yet. Focus keeps you oriented when the landscape shifts. It keeps you grounded when momentum increases and steady when it slows. As focus deepens, your relationship with failure continues to evolve. You stop fearing it as an identity and start respecting it as a teacher. You don't rush to avoid mistakes. You learn from them efficiently. You recover faster because you don't attach your worth to the outcome. There is strength in staying with something long enough for it to shape you, in resisting the urge to reinvent yourself every time things get uncomfortable. Focus rewards patience with depth. It turns effort into expertise. It transforms repetition into mastery. And through it all, you keep choosing the work, the unglamorous days, the quiet improvements, the small decisions that don't look impressive but add up. You keep choosing alignment over attention, discipline over drama, intention over impulse, staying rooted in the understanding that what you are building is not just an outcome, but a way of operating, a way of thinking, a way of showing up consistently, even as the conditions change and the path continues to unfold one deliberate step at a time, and with each step you start to note patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, patterns of distraction that used to derail you without you even realizing it. Focusing on you means paying attention to these patterns, learning from them, and gradually replacing the ones that no longer serve you. It's not instant, it's not glamorous, but it is transformational. Every habit you change, every thought you refine, every action you take builds a version of yourself that is capable of more than you imagined yesterday. You start to see that consistency is more valuable than intensity. That showing up every day, even in small ways, compounds into results that feel almost effortless to those watching from the outside. The truth is, no one sees the thousands of choices you make when no one is looking. They only see the outcome. But outcomes are built in the shadows, in the quiet dedication, in the invisible hours when no one applauds. Focusing on you means committing to those invisible hours, because you understand that's where the real work happens. And as your focus sharpens, patience becomes your ally. You realize that the world does not owe you immediate results, and neither do you owe the world your attention at the expense of your growth. There is a rhythm to progress, a cadence that must be respected. Rushing creates mistakes, impatience creates anxiety. When you focus on you, you learn to trust the pace of your journey, even when it doesn't match anyone else's. You learn that your only competition is who you were yesterday, and that comparing your beginning to someone else's middle is pointless. Focusing on you also changes how you view challenges. Obstacles stop being inconveniences and start being opportunities to test your resilience. When difficulty arises, you don't ask why me, you ask what can I learn. Each problem becomes a classroom, each setback a lesson. And when you begin to see life this way, setbacks lose their sting and fear loses its grip. You begin to trust yourself more than you trust external circumstances, because you understand that your response matters far more than the challenge itself. The work of focusing on you is not always linear. There will be days when doubt seeps in, when old habits try to reclaim your energy, when distractions scream louder than your discipline. But focus teaches you to navigate those days with intention. You learn to pause, reflect, recalibrate, and return to your path without guilt. You begin to understand that progress is not measured by perfection, but by persistence, by the courage to keep choosing yourself, even when the choice is difficult. And slowly, you notice a shift in how you interact with the world. You stop absorbing the anxieties of others. You stop overcommitting to obligations that dilute your energy. You stop seeking validation for the sake of comfort. Your focus makes you selective, intentional, grounded. The people who are meant to be in your journey naturally gravitate toward your clarity. The distractions naturally fall away. Focus becomes a filter, preserving your energy for what truly matters. You begin to value preparation as much as execution, not because planning guarantees success, but because preparation creates confidence. Confidence that allows you to act decisively when opportunity arises, confidence that doesn't depend on luck or approval, confidence that is cultivated through repeated, deliberate action. Focusing on you means investing in that preparation day after day, knowing that the invisible work today will yield visible results tomorrow. There is also a growing understanding that your energy is finite, and that how you spend it shapes everything. When you focus on you, you stop scattering energy on distractions, doubts, and drama. You become intentional with your time, your relationships, your attention. You realize that every choice is an investment, and that the returns compound exponentially when aligned with your purpose. And then, a remarkable thing happens. You start to enjoy the process, even when it's uncomfortable. The quiet moments, the repetitive routines, the daily grind, these become not obstacles, but tools. You recognize that excellence is forged in repetition, resilience, and the willingness to do what is necessary without needing praise. You begin to find satisfaction in showing up for yourself, in honoring your commitments, in taking ownership of your growth. Focus teaches you that fear, doubt, and distraction are not enemies. They are signals. They are indicators of areas where attention is needed, areas where growth is waiting. Instead of running from them, you learn to engage them, examine them, and move through them. You stop letting them control you. You begin to control them, and in doing so, you create momentum that cannot be stopped by external chaos. You start to measure your progress differently, not in trophies, not in recognition, not in comparison. You measure it in alignment, in clarity, in the consistency of your choices. You notice when you show up even when you don't feel like it. You celebrate the discipline to continue when comfort tempts you to quit. You acknowledge the courage it takes to focus on you while the world demands your attention elsewhere. Every decision becomes intentional. Every action becomes a reflection of the person you are committed to becoming. You learn to say no to distractions that dilute your energy, to people who drain it, to habits that limit it. Saying no becomes not an act of exclusion, but an act of protection for your vision, your energy, and your growth. And the more consistently you do this, the more clarity you gain, the stronger your momentum becomes, and the closer your efforts bring you to the results you are working toward. The journey of focusing on you is not always easy. It requires courage, it requires discipline, it requires faith in the unseen, in the work that cannot yet be measured. But the work is worth it, because through it, you develop strength that doesn't falter when conditions change. You develop resilience that doesn't crumble under pressure. You develop a version of yourself that thrives regardless of external validation, that persists regardless of immediate results, and that continues to rise because it is rooted in purpose, preparation, and relentless focus on you.